Welcome to Night Coffee Crime. In this episode, we delve into the chilling story of Mariam Soulakiotis, known as the Killer Nun. She led the Karatia convent east of Athens, where what seemed like a peaceful religious community became a place of manipulation and fear. Under the guise of offering eternal salvation, Mariam preyed on vulnerable individuals, convincing them to give up their land, money, and freedom. Her reign of control left a trail of victims, and today we uncover the dark truths behind her so-called faith. Her name was Mariam Soulakiotis, but history remembers her as Mother Rasputin, a title as ominous as the legacy she left behind. Born in 1883, in the small town of Karatia, Greece, Mariam's early life remains shrouded in mystery. Little is known beyond her humble beginnings as a factory worker, a seemingly unremarkable start for a woman who would later become one of Greece's most infamous figures. It was within the confines of the Orthodox Church that Mariam would find her calling, one that would lead her down a dark and treacherous path. From these quiet beginnings, a storm was brewing, one that would forever tarnish the walls of a white cupolaed convent high in the hills of Attica. Mariam Soulakiotis' journey into religious prominence began with her unwavering devotion to Archbishop Matthew Karpathakis of Vrestina, a controversial figure in his own right. Matthew was at the center of a religious schism that divided the Orthodox Church in the early 20th century. In 1927, Matthew and Mariam founded a convent in Karatia, Attica. Perched high among the forested hills, its white cupolas gleamed in the sunlight, projecting an image of purity and peace. To outsiders, the convent seemed like a sanctuary, a retreat for those seeking solace and salvation. But its origins were rooted in division. Matthew, also known as Father Matthias, had broken away from the Orthodox Church to establish his own separatist group. This isolated community of faith would soon become a stage for Mariam's rise to power, and the chilling acts that followed. What began as a spiritual refuge would gradually transform into a house of horrors under her control. During World War II, the balance of power within the convent began to shift. Archbishop Matthew Karpathakis, once the driving force behind the community, saw his health steadily decline. This left him increasingly reliant on Mariam Soulakiotis, who had already established herself as a trusted figure within the convent. With Matthew's weakening condition, Mariam stepped into a more dominant role, eventually assuming the title of High Priestess. Under her leadership, the convent began to change. While it still appeared to be a haven of faith to the outside world, Mariam's grip on the community grew tighter, and her authority became absolute. In May 1950, Vicar Bishop Matthew of Vrestina passed away, leaving Mariam as the undisputed leader of the convent. What followed was a reign of control and manipulation, as the once sacred space became a tool for her personal ambitions. Mariam's unchecked power would soon lead to unimaginable consequences for those who sought refuge within the convent's walls. Mariam Soulakiotis, known as the Killer Nun, had a far-reaching network across Greece, recruiting individuals under the guise of offering them eternal salvation. She organized agents who spread out across the country, seeking those vulnerable enough to be converted and lured into her control. These agents worked quietly in different regions, using religious rhetoric like eternal salvation to deceive innocent people. The targets were often the most vulnerable members of society: young girls, elderly women, and even entire families, all of whom were drawn into her grasp and taken to the convent. The carefully constructed facade of Mariam Soulakiotis' operation was finally shattered in 1949, when the police began investigating a Greek-born girl from the United States, Ileana Spirits, who was believed to have been taken to the convent. However, when the authorities searched the premises, they found no trace of the 18-year-old Ileana. Instead, deep within the convent's underground cell, they discovered a 70-year-old woman, starving and emaciated. She was bound in chains. The woman revealed that she had been living on nothing but dry bread and water for weeks, enduring what Mariam had deemed a penance. This shocking discovery triggered a chain of events that would unravel the true horrors behind Mariam's reign. The police, along with the public prosecutor, began piecing together a chilling story of medieval fantasy combined with 20th century fraud. They learned how devout religious individuals were deceived into joining the convent, only to be subjected to cruel rituals, including a brutal 40-day fast as a form of penance. At the end of these grueling trials, victims were promised eternal salvation and lasting peace, but only if they signed over all their property to the convent. Mother Superior Mariam Soulakiotis of the Greek Karatia Monastery, located east of Athens, found herself in the legal spotlight once again. She was brought to trial on charges of the unlawful export of olive oil to Cyprus and the illicit import of tires. However, despite these serious accusations, she was acquitted on those charges. Yet, her legal troubles didn't end there. Although she was cleared of the export and import offences, Mariam was not freed. She was sent back to prison while investigations continued into more sinister allegations. These included charges of abduction, fraud, and unlawful detention accusations that painted a far darker picture of her actions within the convent. In addition to Mariam, other nuns and monks were arrested, all facing similar charges. In February 1953, Mariam Soulakiotis, the 70-year-old abbess of the Karatia convent, was sentenced to 10 years in prison. This verdict followed accusations that she had built an immense personal fortune by converting vulnerable individuals, bringing them to the convent, and extorting land and money from them through harsh medieval-style penances and promises of salvation. At her last trial in February, only 6 of the 23 charges against her were considered. The prosecution presented a damning case, claiming that Mariam had manipulated elderly converts by convincing them that they could only reach heaven if they willed their estates to her. Once they did so, she hastened their deaths by imposing cruel fasts and penances, furthering her hold over them. It was revealed that Mariam owned at least 300 houses and farms throughout Greece, along with gold and jewels worth thousands of dollars. The extent of her wealth was staggering, accumulated through exploitation and deceit. A medical statement presented during the trial outlined the death toll within the convent. It was reported that 177 men and women had died under Mariam's harsh regime, suffering from hard labor, fasting, and severe penance. Of these, 150 deaths were attributed to negligent homicides, many of which were caused by tuberculosis. Additionally, Mariam was sentenced to 4 years imprisonment in 1953 for embezzlement and ill treatment of a convent inmate. The court decided that this new sentence would be merged with her previous 10-year sentence, marking the final chapter in the long and tragic saga of the Karatia convent. Throughout her trials and imprisonment, Mariam Soulakiotis consistently denied all the charges against her, dismissing them as satanic fictions. Mariam Soulakiotis passed away on the 23rd of November 1954, at the age of 71, in Avarov prison. Her death marked the end of a controversial and tragic chapter in Greek history. Thank you for watching Night Coffee Crime. Mariam Soulakiotis' story is a haunting reminder of the dangers of manipulation disguised as faith. If you found this story as chilling as I did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more true crime cases. Stay safe, and always be cautious of those who prey on the vulnerable, no matter how holy they may seem.